We must begin by admitting a reality that most of us fear saying aloud. Toxicity is energy, and energy is not destroyed, it only changes form. That means all the anger, bitterness, jealousy, resentment, gossip, abuse, rejection, sabotage, it is real fuel, vibrating at a certain frequency. We often make the mistake of fighting it with resistance, of saying, I need to get rid of this energy, or I need to throw it out. But nothing in the cosmos is thrown out, not even our worst days, not even our ugliest thoughts. Everything is transformed, alchemized, recycled like compost feeding the soil. If you misunderstand this, you spend your life battling shadows you cannot erase. But if you master it, if you learn how to catch toxicity when it hits you and reverse it immediately, you will discover power that most will never wield. Do you notice how some people, even when mistreated, somehow glow brighter as if poison became food? That is not accident, it is spiritual alchemy. The first step is awareness. We cannot transform what we deny. Most people walk through life drunk on reactions. They snap, they defend, they rage, they despair, without even realizing they are pouring gasoline on invisible fires. Awareness is stepping back and naming what is happening. This is anger. This is jealousy. This is betrayal rising in me. Instead of becoming the energy, we name it. Naming gives separation. Have you ever noticed that when you say aloud, I feel anger, it feels different from saying, I am angry? One fuses identity with poison, the other creates space. Awareness is not yet transformation, but it is the moment the magician lifts the veil. Without awareness, you are a puppet to every toxic string. With awareness, you cut the strings. My question to you is, in the very moment you feel triggered, can you pause long enough to name what is happening inside you? The second step comes only after awareness, neutralization through breath. When a toxin enters, your body registers it first, faster than your mind. The heart rate spikes, the hands tense, the stomach knots. If we allow the body to hijack our spirit, toxicity sets the frame. But if we reclaim the body, toxicity cannot establish its throne. Breathing in specific patterns, slow, deep, conscious, re-anchors us in harmony. Inhalation is not mere oxygen, it is spirit entering. Exhalation is release not just of air, but of negativity. So imagine that right now, as you breathe in, you are saying, power flows into me. And as you exhale, you say, toxicity leaves me. After enough breaths, you feel a shift, subtle but undeniable. The toxic emotion does not vanish, but it is deactivated, like venom without a fang. Ask yourself genuinely, why do so many of us wait until after screaming, after breaking, after regretting, before breathing? When breathing could have rewritten the story at the start. The third step is transmutation through perspective. This is where we turn the raw toxin into fuel. After awareness and breathing, we ask, what is this energy trying to show me? Every attack carries within it hidden wisdom. Jealousy from others means you possess something worth envying. Betrayal often reveals where you placed trust recklessly. Anger in yourself shows an unmet need or unhealed wound. Pain is a messenger wearing terrifying masks. Instead of rejecting the messenger, we learn its language. Imagine someone insults you. The first instinct is to strike back. But transmutation asks, what vibration can I harvest from this? Their cruelty could become your clarity. Their dismissal could become your determination. Their envy could become your mirror that proves your light. This is not passive acceptance, it is active alchemy. You stop asking, why me? And begin asking, what power is hidden here? That single shift redefines every toxic moment from curse into catalyst. The fourth step is creative redirection. Energy must move. If it does not, it stagnates into poison. Once you hold toxicity in awareness and breathe through it, you must redirect it outward, not in destruction, but in creation. Write, sing, journal, lift, build, serve. When energy feels unbearable, you offer it a new channel. Think of how rivers work. When blocked, they flood and destroy. When guided, they irrigate and fertilize. Your toxic energy is the same river. If betrayal made you burn, you might journal 20 pages and suddenly the clarity becomes a new plan for your life. If humiliation pierced you, maybe you pick up a brush and art bursts forth that speaks more truth than words ever could. The practice is simple but profound. Whenever faced with toxic energy, immediately think, what can I create with this? That question turns the unbearable into the unforgettable. And perhaps the real inquiry is, why waste energy on retaliation when that same charge could fuel your destiny? The fifth step, which completes the cycle, is vibrational amplification. After you have redirected toxicity into creation, you don't only heal, you expand. The energy becomes light you emit, a field that others feel. Have you been near someone who emanates peace so strongly that your anxiety seems to melt without them saying a word? That is amplification. What was once toxic fuel has now been tuned to a higher frequency, and frequencies spread. The child who watched you endure cruelty but radiate wisdom will grow differently. The friend who sees you humiliated but still standing will gain courage for their own battles. Toxicity, when reversed, does not stop at you, it transforms communities. This is why some of our greatest leaders, artists, saints, sages were often born out of pain. They refused to be only victims. They amplified their scars into symphonies. And this leads to the ultimate question. What vibration are you actually giving to the world after all that was given to you? Now, you might say, this sounds almost too powerful. Can transformation really happen instantly? And I say to you, yes. It does not mean the wound disappears in one breath, but the shift of vibration is immediate. The toxic energy, the insult, the betrayal, they may still sting, but in one conscious choice, you redirect its trajectory. Instead of spiraling downward, you spiral upward. Instead of echoing cycles of harm, you invent a new circuitry of healing. Instant transformation is not about never feeling negativity, it is about never letting negativity own you. Imagine how society itself would change if entire communities mastered this. Wars would dissolve, families would heal, innovation would flourish not from greed but from resilience. This is the understated revolution, not the absence of toxicity, but the mastery of it. Lastly, we have to confront the hardest truth. Choosing this path is not common. Most people prefer blame, gossip, retaliation. They prefer easy reactions rather than sacred transformations. That is why many stay stuck their whole lives. But if you are listening to this, if something in your spirit aches at these words, then you are not most people. You are the kind of soul chosen to show others what alchemy looks like in real time. That is why the attacks feel heavier on you, why the betrayals seemed sharpest, why your loneliness has been profound. Because your journey is not about escaping toxicity, it is about converting it into vibrations so powerful that they alter futures. And here is my invitation. Stop saying, "Why me?" and begin asking, "Who do I become if I master this?" That question, lived fully, will turn your entire biography into revelation. What many of us don't realize is that transformation is not just a skill, it is training. No one enters a furnace and walks out unchanged. When toxicity enters our lives, it is not random, it is law training us. The universe selects moments when betrayal comes, when dishonor strikes, when rejection shows its teeth, not as punishments, but as invitations to refine the vibration we carry. Every insult, every poison, every lie is essentially an enrollment ticket into the furnace, asking, will you rise higher or sink lower? And the furnace is never comfortable. You sweat, you ache, you doubt. But inside that pressure chamber, something profound happens. Your spirit toughens without becoming hard. The true test is not whether you survive toxic moments, but whether you create from them. Have you really considered that each trial might be less about the cruelty you endure and more about the energy you could release if you respond differently? The first training of the furnace is mastery of pause. We live in a world addicted to speed of reaction, speed of retaliation, speed of assumption. Someone insults you and you rehearse 20 counterattacks in seconds. Someone betrays you and you immediately draw up blueprints for revenge. But the furnace teaches that the pause is sacred. In the pause between action and reaction lies your freedom. When you pause, the toxin is intercepted and you gain choice. Do I inhale this and spit back fire? Or do I catch it and reverse its current? Most people never pause, and so they are slaves to their emotions. But the warriors of spirit, the transformants, the chosen practice stillness, even for 3 seconds. In those seconds, toxicity loses its grip. The pause itself is alchemy. Ask yourself plainly, when was the last time you paused long enough between hurt and reaction to actually master the moment? The second training is attention to language. Words are vibrations given shape. When we consume toxicity, the words leaving our mouths either lock it inside us or cast it upward into power. Have you noticed how people who dwell on anger repeat the same poison endlessly in their speech? I'm stupid. They ruin me. Life is unfair. The toxic energy entrenches itself because the tongue has baptized it. Yet those who transmute rise because their language converts the energy. Instead of repeating negativity, they declare, "This is making me stronger. What was meant for harm has become my training." This pain is fuel. Every declaration is like striking a tuning fork inside your mind. You begin to vibrate higher regardless of what was given to you. What words, I ask you, dominate your life right now? The words that imprison or the words that liberate? The third training is the art of reframing. Perspective is not weakness, it is wizardry. Consider this: two people face identical betrayals. One collapses into bitterness, the other turns it into clarity. What changed? The event remained the same, only their lens shifted. Reframing is choosing a lens of growth where others only see decay. For example, you might say, "My friend abandoned me. I am unlovable." Or you can reframe and say, "This abandonment has revealed my strength to stand alone and taught me to choose with better discernment." One story poisons, the other powers. The furnace pushes us toward reframing until it becomes instinct rather than effort. Imagine living so aligned in reframing that no toxic energy could lock you in pain. Every single blow instantly became a spark illuminating your next step. At what point will you admit that the lens you use to view an event may matter more than the event itself? The fourth training is physical channeling. We forget that our bodies are magnets for energy, both toxic and healing. When tension is stored, when hurt is swallowed, the body itself becomes poisoned. But if we channel the energy through motion, walking, running, dancing, lifting, stretching, we give the toxin a way to move, to shift, to release. Toxicity thrives in stillness without awareness. Have you noticed how after exercise or movement, clarity suddenly arises, like fog clearing from a field? This is because the stagnant buildup of toxic energy is literally shaken from its prison. In spiritual practice, even ancient shamans and monks understood this principle. They drummed, they danced, they moved in rituals of fire, not as entertainment, but as energy transference. So, the next time betrayal clutches your chest or anger suffocates your veins, ask, what movement will turn this into liberation? The body can be the prison, but equally, it is the exit door. The fifth training is the transformation of memory. Many assume toxicity only happens in the present moment, forgetting that our past itself can be saturated with unresolved toxins. Old betrayals, childhood wounds, words spoken decades ago still pulse within us, shaping how we feel today. If we do not revisit and reframe those memories, they remain unprocessed venom. The furnace of memory asks us to return, yes, painfully, but with new alchemy. When you view an old hurt through the lens of your present strength, you change its vibration forever. No longer does it define you, it becomes fuel for the vibration you now carry. This is why remembering is not weakness, it is reclaiming. You go back not to drown again, but to rob the poison of its power. Do you see the radical implication? Every scar in your story is waiting to be redeemed into firelight. Will you dare to revisit your wounds with new eyes? The sixth training is service. Toxicity turns from curse to power most fully when it is leveraged not only for your survival, but for the benefit of others. Pain turned inward can feel like a storm, but pain redirected outward becomes shelter for other people in storms. When you use what you endured to uplift, guide, heal, or inspire others, the energy multiplies into legacy. This is why some of the most impactful teachers, artists, and healers were once the most wounded. They did not merely recover, they repurposed. You have known this instinct. You tell a hurting friend, "I know how this feels, I've been there," and suddenly your past pain lights a candle for another. That is vibrational alchemy at its highest level, your toxicity transformed not into pride but into service. And what greater training can the furnace give us than to turn poison into bread for the world? The seventh training is surrender. After all the practices, pause, language, reframing, movement, memory, service, there remains the final frontier, letting go. Too often we cling to toxicity even after we practice with it, because part of our identity becomes tied to the struggle. We whisper, "If I lose this pain, what am I?" But surrender is trust. It is to believe that you can live fully alive without carrying venom as fuel. It is whispering, "I release this. I let it flow through me and outward. I am no longer the owner of this negativity." Without surrender, transformation remains partial. With surrender, it completes. Surrender is frightening, yes, but liberating. It is the moment you release not only the toxin but also the idea that you must control the outcome. And when you surrender, you discover you are lighter, freer, clearer. The final inquiry then becomes, are you willing to exist without identifying with the wounds that once defined you? When we talk about scars, we often whisper as if they are ugly proofs of weakness. But what if we shifted perspective and saw scars as musical notes etched into the skin of our spirit? Every hurt, every toxic moment, every bruise you thought would break you, it becomes one more note in a symphony that cannot be replicated by any other life. The mistake many make is believing the toxic energy that once scarred them must remain a wound. In truth, once transmuted, that scar begins to sing, and its melody carries further than you realize. Imagine your pain telling its story not in whispers of trauma, but in vibrations of liberation so potent others find healing simply by listening. Isn't that a more honest definition of legacy than wealth or fame that your survival sings for centuries? The first expansion is resonance. Energy transformed does not stay glued to your body, it reverberates outward. When you decide not to curse in return for being cursed, when you choose gratitude even when drenched in envy, when you lift someone while being pulled down yourself, that choice radiates. The people near you can feel it, often without explanation. Have you ever sat near someone and without words sensed peace? That is resonance at work. Your scar becomes a sound wave, striking chords in others who never even knew your story. And slowly, their own toxicity softens. Tell me, do you fully realize how many lives are softened by your unspoken resilience? The second expansion is modeling. Human beings learn not by hearing rules but by witnessing possibility. When a person watches you endure toxicity without letting it poison your spirit, they suddenly believe it is possible for them too. Parents model it for children, leaders for communities, friends for each other, strangers even on passing trains. You may never know who notices you refusing to bow to negativity, but the modeling plants seeds. And seeds, when watered by time, may become forests long after you are gone. What kind of forest are you silently planting by the way you carry your scars? The third expansion is creative civilization. Transformed energy gives birth to art, philosophy, spiritual practice, architecture of thought itself. Every holy text, every timeless song, every unforgettable painting is a scar turned into symphony. The artists and prophets were not born immune to pain, they were baptized in it. But they did not drown, they transmuted. If you listen carefully, all great works hum with this alchemy. Life was cruel, yet the response was creation. And what is civilization, if not the sum of such transformations? Without scars turned into songs, we would live in silence and rubble. Do you see how essential your own transmutation might be to humanity itself? The fourth expansion is collective healing. When one individual shifts their vibration, the field of energy they belong to shifts also. Families heal when one person breaks cycles. Communities evolve when one person refuses revenge. Nations reconcile when a few decide to transform outrage into endurance. Healing is not always massive at first. It trickles, it ripples, it multiplies. Toxicity multiplies destruction, but transformation multiplies healing. Which multiplication will your life ignite? That is a heavier responsibility than most admit. That your choice in a single toxic moment is not about you only, but about everyone connected to you. The fifth expansion is timeless echo. You will be gone one day, but the ripples of your alchemy survive. A child you never meet might live freer because of how you transform toxicity today. A book written from your pain may guide hands in lands you never touched. A story about your dignity in suffering may inspire networks of souls centuries away. Legacy is not control, it is vibration echoing beyond you. And the truth is, whether you transform or transmit toxicity, echoes form. One leaves curses, the other blessings. What echoes will your actions sing into the corridors of history? The sixth expansion is transcendence of identity. Once you understand scars as symphonies, you begin to see yourself no longer as merely an individual struggling with poison, but as a channel of universal energy. You are not you hurt, me hurt back. You are energy arrives, I shape it, the world transforms. In this recognition, spiritual authority awakens. You no longer need external validation because you carry cosmic assignment. The very toxins that were designed to break you now confirm your role as transformer. And in this realization, you touch transcendence where even pain is sacred, because it reveals your eternal self beneath the skin of circumstances. The seventh, ultimate expansion is gratitude. In gratitude not only for the pleasant things in life, but for the betrayals, the bitterness, the venom that once felt unbearable. For without them, the music would be incomplete. Gratitude does not glorify toxicity, it acknowledges that it was raw material for your transcendence. And gratitude is the flavor of all true legacies, leaving behind not bitterness, but blessings. Imagine living fully enough that at the end of your life you could say, "Every wound written upon me has become music for the world." That is the final transformation from scar to symphony, from pain to vibration, from ordinary life to eternal light. When we talk about transformation, most of us secretly want it to be easy, like flipping a switch. But true transformation is not a trick of light, it is the work of fire. Toxic energy does not bow to shallow affirmations or false smiles, it demands integrity. That is why so many people repeat, "I'm letting it go," but still feel chained to the same poison years later. They never entered the furnace, They never allowed themselves to sweat through the discomfort of honest alchemy. To transform instantly does not mean there is no process. It means the shift in direction can happen in one choice. The energy that once crushed you can, in a single breath, begin to serve you, but only if you are bold enough to surrender to transformation in its rawest form. Have you noticed how fear vanishes the moment we decide fully, even if circumstances stay the same? The first truth we must face is that toxicity is feedback, not identity. That sharp sting when criticized, that heavy knot when betrayed, that sudden heat when humiliated, they are alarms, not definitions. Too often we mistake them for reality, saying, "I am broken. I am worthless. I am unworthy." No, you are simply vibrating at a resonance introduced by another's darkness. Feedback can be used. It can say, "Here lies an unhealed wound. Here lies an unclaimed strength. Here lies a lesson." But if you fuse with it, feedback becomes false identity, and you live a scar as if it is your name. Aren't you tired of confusing other people's projections with your own truth? The second revelation is that instant change begins with the body. We often chase spiritual wisdom far above, forgetting that the body is the vessel where energy lands first. The jaw locks, the breath shortens, the muscles tighten. These are not meaningless responses, they are your body storing toxicity. But to ignore them is to reinforce the poison. Attending immediately, stretching, exhaling, grounding your feet, loosening your shoulders begins the process without effortful thought. It teaches your cells to unclench, and unclenching is the birth of transformation. Think of sages who mastered stillness. They were not avoiding the storm. They were embodying harmony physically until the mind and spirit followed. How can you ignore a body that shouts louder than the event itself? The third reminder is that story creates vibration. The same event can enslave or empower, depending on the story you tell. Betrayal transforms into endless bitterness when the story is, "I am always betrayed." The same betrayal transforms into wisdom when the story becomes, "I now know who deserves my trust." Both stories are true in detail, but worlds apart in vibration. You are the storyteller of your energy, not the victim of the plot. If you want to instantly shift toxicity, shift the narrative in your mouth and in your mind. What would happen if your next wound became a legend of resilience instead of a complaint of despair? Fourth, we embrace that creation is transmutation manifested. Do not let toxic energy stagnate in your chest, it must be moved. Draw with shaking hands, write words with trembling honesty, speak into an empty room, move your body until the rhythm matches your heartbeat. Creation takes raw, chaotic vibration and forges it into beauty. Every song, every speech, every invention born of pain is proof that energy redirected multiplies into power. Here lies a secret. Creation is the fastest escape from toxicity because it transforms not only within you but also for anyone who receives the work. Will you keep poison bottled, or will you turn it into medicine for the world? Fifth, we remember that amplification seals the cycle. Once toxicity is transmuted, it begins pulsing outward. Energy never ends at you, it radiates. If you transform bitterness into determination, soon those around you feel braver. If you turn anxiety into stillness, others breathe easier in your presence without knowing why. You become a transmitter of higher frequencies. This is why healing is not selfish, it is service. Every time you master toxicity, you contribute to the raising of the collective vibration. Isn't it strange that while you thought you were simply trying to survive, the universe was using your scar as a lighthouse for others? The sixth insight is that gratitude closes the alchemy. Not gratitude for the wound itself, but for what emerged from it. Gratitude cements the vibration. Without it, you risk cycling back into the same hurt. With it, you anchor the transformation so firmly that nothing can uproot it. To whisper, "Thank you for the fire. It showed me my strength," is not weakness, it is mastery. It prevents the poison from ever regaining hold because you have owned it, learned from it, and used it. Gratitude cracks the final coat of pain. It unveils how darkness played its secret role in awakening your greatness. And the seventh, ultimate reminder, you are the alchemist. Transformation is never passive. It does not fall like rain, it is chosen. Every second you breathe, you stand at the crossroads, surrender to toxicity or transmute it into power. This choice is your greatest freedom. Instant transformation is not magic only mystics touch, it is the courage to notice, to breathe, to reframe, to move, to create, to amplify, to give thanks. The steps are simple, but walking them makes you unstoppable. So ask yourself sincerely, will you continue echoing toxicity, or will you dare to live as the alchemist, the one who sings scars into symphonies and turns poison into power?